Ready to experience the power of releasing what no longer serves you and awaken to a more beautiful, intentional way of life? You, my friend, are in the perfect place. Welcome to Above and Beyond Style. I'm your host, Maria DiLorenzo, and in 2019, I founded my brand to provide a unique, intuitive approach to personal styling and home editing for those ready to get clearer and experience personal freedom. With this podcast, I'll uncover key elements of where spirituality, psychology, and style intersect, revealing how you can make intentional choices to liberate yourself from clutter and live a clearer, lighter, joyful, authentic life. So let me ask you, are you ready to clear your closet and your living spaces to find your freedom? Then it's time. Come with me on this journey, and together we'll take your style above and beyond style. Welcome back to Above and Beyond Style. This is season 6, and I am your host, Maria DiLorenzo. And it is just such a pleasure to finally be back with you. I recognize it's been well over a year since I have put out any new podcast episodes, but it's been a bit intentional, I guess you could say. I have been in a major transition in my personal and professional life. And so it just took a little time to kind of get me back in the groove and think about how I wanted to structure and share with you in this new season of our conversations together. It's been a really interesting process for me because I've wanted to be able to offer insight, tips, tricks, strategies, all the things that I love to be able to do in the podcast, but also have like a real conversation about how things have been going in my own life and how that's been informing and influencing my work, and where I think that you as a listener might benefit. Because ultimately, when we listen to podcasts, I think it's because we want to learn a little something or to laugh or to be intrigued by a story. And this particular season, I wanted to be able to lead with more stories that certainly are going to incorporate style and home editing and some of the key pieces of what I do, coupled with this sort of spiritual lens that I think is really important for me to continue. So if you haven't been along with me for the first 5 seasons, this has been a podcast where I have explored the intersection between psychology, spirituality, and style. And that very much still is the same motive for me. I have a great interest in each of these spaces, and I feel like the conversation around style has always been deeper. There's just always been more to it than just talking about clothes or how they fit your body and how we are supported by them in our life. So, this particular season, I wanted to be able to give us a little glimpse, if you will, about what these last 18 plus months have been like for me. And if you haven't been privy to what's been going on, and I talked a little bit about this in previous seasons, let me give you a quick recap about where I am and where we are, particularly with the podcast. So it is now mid 2025. So it's it's September, sorry, of 2025. That tells you how lapsed I am from the date and time of the year. So back in April of 2023, I sold my condo, and it was a really interesting process to come to because I knew and felt very deeply that I needed to explore what I would have then called a more vibrant lifestyle. I got to a point where I was living in this place, which was a beautiful home, a beautiful town in a suburb of Boston, Massachusetts. And I was feeling really lucky in a lot of ways because I had a good job. I was still doing styling on the side. I was feeling, content in my life. There wasn't any major disruption. But I do think that there were these signs and sort of nudges from the universe that were very much encouraging me to sort of look at how my life had unfolded and where might it go next. And I remember I came back from the holidays in early 2023 and felt like, this is it. I think I have to move. And the weird part is for most people, I think when we move, it's because of some precipitating event, right? So there's maybe a new job that's bringing us to a new town or a new city or state, or maybe a spouse or a partner has a new opportunity and we are going with them. Maybe if you have children, there's like better opportunities in different school districts, or so you can see like these are sort of some standard, I would say, kind of common reasons why people might explore moving. But for me, I didn't have any of those as sort of my baseline. It really boiled down to this nudge, this sort of whisper that was like, is this where you want to be? And not, is this all that there is, but could there be something bigger, wider, deeper that is somehow being inhibited or blocked because of where I was physically located? So that stirred me to literally just say, well, let's just see what happens, right? So I posted, I got a real estate agent. She listed my unit and it sold within 2 weeks. And I was on my way for an adventure that I don't know that I fully understood I was stepping into. And I don't know if when you sell or you move homes, part of it is like, are you really aware of all the things that you're about to step into, but yet have maybe this blissful sort of naivete about how things might unfold and, trying to just take them one step at a time. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because the season of, this particular season of Above and Beyond Style, I want to talk to you about my nomadic life lessons. Because what this boiled down to was because I didn't have a destination in mind, the goal of the move was to explore and see like where might I like to live and what sort of community what would I be connected to or feel interested in, and where might I find my business to be able to thrive in new and challenging ways. And I didn't have any of those answers back in 2023. And if you had asked me then, I would have said to you that, oh, it'll take me about 6 or 8 months probably to kind of come to some clarity about what that means for me and where I might end up living. And surprise, it took me over 2 years to be able to really identify my next right step in a way that felt like I really was honoring that intuitive knowing about there is a wider, more vibrant lifestyle available to you. You just have to kind of go find it. You got to take the step, take the big leap and go forward with that intention. So this season, I want to talk to you about what these last 18 plus months have been like, where I've been literally nomadic. I have had a few different situations where I was with or living in one place for quote unquote an extended period of time, meaning, several months at a time. And then I've had definitely months where I was living month to month, sort of figuring out where I was going to go for these 2 or 3 weeks. And then maybe I was changing again for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So the life of living sort of in this nomadic wanderer space was one that I sort of stepped into a little bit unknowingly, but also very much trying to stay open to what were the life lessons that were going to accompany me in this. And so I thought I could tell you a little bit about some of these lessons because oftentimes when we're in the thick of transition, I feel like we don't always have an opportunity to sort of pause and grasp and hold on to the richness of things that are unfolding. We're just trying to live moment to moment, right? Like getting through these different situations. And while I'm still somewhat in transition, I do feel like I've come around or kind of come to the other side a little bit of what this nomadic experience felt like, looked like, and what were some of the greatest takeaways for me as I've been in this space. And let me also preface this by saying, and again, if you're new to the podcast, you might not know my full story, but I am in my mid 40s. I'm 46. And I decided that my life just wasn't going to look like everybody else's life at this stage. I am not married. I do not have children. As I mentioned, I sold my home. I've had a couple different previous properties. So I have been a homeowner, but I am currently not a homeowner. And this sort of fluidness to my life was relatively outside of the box for me. I had a very predictable income, I had a predictable lifestyle. And I do think that that was the part of me that was sort of nudging this to like, well, what else is out there? What else is there for me that could look and feel different than what I was currently experiencing? So, I wanted to start this season by giving you a little bit of a taste of kind of those early months and what I was doing to kind of get myself oriented to this new way of life, because I don't think that it came easily to me. I feel like I was trying to transfer elements of what I knew for stability and security into this sort of unstable, unsecure space. And to be candid, that wasn't easy. And that definitely didn't necessarily translate in a clean, linear way. Meaning, like, some of the things that I might do to feel safe or secure, right? So it's like knowing where you're going to sleep at night, right? If you're one of those people who feels like, oh, it's no big deal to not have that necessarily in your pocket, I was not one of those people. I really enjoyed the security of knowing, like, I'm going to be in this one place night after night after night. And so when I look back to the early stages of this decision, I was really lucky because I have a friend who gratefully has a home that had some spare, kind of almost like an in-law suite within her home. And when I was debating this idea of selling my house and not really having a clear idea of where I wanted to go next, but having some visual kind of understanding of like, I'd like to do some traveling and I want to be able to see people, but I kind of need just like a home base so that some of my things can live literally in one place while I'm kind of in motion. And I was lucky because this friend very graciously extended her home to me. And what I think began as maybe 2 or 3 months actually extended into 8 months. And to be honest, that wasn't my intention. I was really sort of living month to month, seeing how things were going and trying to figure out, like, what is my everyday going to look like now? How am I going to be making some of these adjustments to this, like, bigger, more vibrant lifestyle, but also recognizing that, I still had responsibilities. I still had a business that I was trying to grow and run, and I didn't know where this was headed. So, having some form of stability was really important. And I do feel like while I was in this space of, trying to kind of get my bearings, and I went from living by myself to living with a family of four. And trying to kind of, adjust alongside of this while still trying to make some decisions about like what's coming next. What am I going to be stepping into? And like I said, I knew travel was on the horizon, but again, I didn't have like all these great master plans. So I lived with this friend for 8 months, as I said, and I was in and out quite a bit during that time. So it wasn't like a consistent 8 months of being present in her home. And they too were traveling at different times during that span of time. So we weren't necessarily like on top of each other for 8 months. In some months, we were sort of two ships passing in the night. And other months, we were very much in each other's day, sharing meals and checking in at breakfast or dinner or helping just kind of in the home and in the way that they operated. And one of the biggest lessons for me in this early stage of moving from living on my own to living with other people had to be about really understanding the generosity that was being extended to me, because this friend wasn't the only friend that actually would extend their home to me for a quote unquote longer period of time. And that also includes my family, and where I was also able to stay with family for longer stints. And what I've learned about that piece of being a part of someone's life and sort of being part of the vulnerable place of seeing kind of the inner workings of other people's lives is I don't know that I was fully prepared to understand how that might feel for other people. And I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouths here or speak for any of these people in my life, but I can imagine, and I'm starting to have a better and deeper understanding of how it would feel to have someone sort of witness your life, like and literally the inner workings of how things go in your life from, how you pick up, how you clean up, what do you prioritize during the day? What are the conversations that you're talking about, right? Like your home and your four walls is your sanctuary. And there's a lot of private, really beautiful things that happen, but we don't normally live our lives with other people who are not kind of in that nuclear family being or bearing witness to those things. And I think I either was naive about that or I don't know that I really prepared for how that might feel. And I do think that it was an interesting experience. And I think I probably underestimated the impact of having another adult in your home or in someone else's home. And so one of the questions I've asked myself has been like, could I have, or how could I have prepared for that a little bit better? I think I tried to remain very open and certainly sensitive to the lengths of my stays and sort of when and where I was present. I was trying to be very conscious of those pieces. But I'm imperfect. I'm sure there were times where I was either present or around when others were feeling like, gosh, I kind of wish she wasn't around. Um, and I do understand how even the most well-intentioned, connections, that it might put a strain on those relationships in some way. And I'm grateful because I don't necessarily have these like negative consequences to these opportunities where I was living with friends or family for extended periods of time. But I do feel like I've been able to really see that it was a lot to ask. And in some capacities, maybe it was a disruption, even with the best of intentions, right? And I don't have regret about this, and I certainly don't feel like my connections with some of these people have suffered, right, because of my extended time in their homes. But it did give me a better understanding of sort of what I was asking of people. And in my own world, it certainly was a change or a transition to learn how to live with other people again. I've been living on my own for well over 10 years. And not only that, but just to share life with other people. And, when we do that, typically it's because we are getting married or we have children or maybe we have an aging parent that, we've invited back into our home. So it's kind of a different level of intimacy and invitation. And I felt like, ooh, isn't this interesting that I was sort of being exposed to kind of the inner workings of people's lives. And I do hope that I've been able to hold the space and the responsibility of knowing people's lives and their kind of inner workings and allowing them to feel whatever they needed to feel about having a witness, but also then to give me the space to understand the kind of the bigness of this ask. And I will say that it was a very big part of how I got through the last 2+ years, because I have been looking at this time and kind of evaluating, how I've made different decisions and who I've been with and how that's panned out. And it's possible that that impact, I don't know that I could have known that from the beginning, but I do wonder if I should have had a bit more awareness for kind of that sense of intimacy and vulnerability that I was stepping into for other people. So, I guess my lesson, if there's a lesson or a takeaway that is accompanied with this, is if you are going to be making transition and I recognize I am maybe unique in my situation and sort of how I was going about this in my own lifestyle, but to really be aware of the impact of some of your decisions on other people as you're making the transition. And not to say that those trump or that those are more important than what you need to do to prioritize your own health, well being, safety, security, all those pieces. But I would just say that it is an important piece for the in between transitional times. And I'm really lucky. I have had a lot of people in my life who have graciously extended their homes, even for just a week at a time or a weekend at a time, and not perhaps as long as 8 or 9 months, but I have been really fortunate to have people in my life who were willing to open their home to me. And even if it wasn't perfect or some of the days were a little uncomfortable, but most of the time it was for me an experience of generosity and hospitality and like deep, deep, deep appreciation for the fact that I was extended the opportunity because I don't know that most people would have done that. I very easily could have done, and I eventually did do longer term like Airbnbs or VRBO. But in those first few months, I didn't move to that. I didn't move to that type of thinking about how I would be organizing and living my life. So that first nomadic life lesson around living with friends and living with family, I did eventually go back to Texas where I grew up and stayed with my mom for several months at a time over the course of those 2+ years. And again, just the generosity. I mean, yes, it's family, but it's still, I am a full-fledged launched adult and was going back and living with my mom. And I'm certain at times it was very disruptive to have, me back in the house for longer periods. But it also was really good to have extended periods of time with these people. So it's this balancing act of being conscious and being aware of how my decision obviously was impacting me. But I was also asking of other people and really trying to stay conscious and grateful and not trying to overextend my stay or, be in that space where I was, it was time to go, right? And knowing when it was time to go appropriately for different arrangements in my living. So that is the first life lesson for this week. I'm excited to continue to share with you more and more of some of these pieces of this puzzle. And I wanted to talk about this obviously within the context of my work too, about style and home editing and the ways that I am showing up in people's homes, right? There's a level of intimacy there that I've talked about many times. And I think this is one of the really special parts about this nomadic experience was that I did get a glimpse into people's lives in a way that I probably either wouldn't have or just hadn't had the opportunity to do. So it's also deepened and enriched my appreciation for when anyone, client, friend, family, lets me step into their home for any extended period of time, whether I'm doing a 1 hour, editing appointment with you or I'm there on multiple visits, that it does make me come to a deep appreciation for what it's like to open your doors and allow someone else to sort of, like I said, see the inner workings of your life, whether that's in your closet, the things that, you decorate or occupy your home with, the decisions, how you spend your money, right? Like all these pieces of this puzzle of intimate personal home life that I have now lived in and had a lived experience with, as well as within my own business. So that's this week's a big life lesson, and I'm really excited to continue to share with you further ideas and thoughts I've had about this experience. And I hope you will continue to join me and we'll see what continues to unfold as these transitions are also still underway in many ways. So thanks for joining me this week, you guys. I'm so grateful to be back with you, podcasting each week and having these conversations. And I'd love to hear, as you are listening on your podcasting platform, or you want to send me an email, let me know what you're thinking about kind of the nomadic life. Like, do you have questions? Are there things that you'd love to make sure that I address or cover in this particular season? Because I know a lot of people are feeling the kind of nudge toward transition, and I recognize the risk it takes to be able to step into a life of transition, especially for an extended period of time. So while I am no guru, I do have experience and I do have some thoughts and ideas about how I've done that, ways I've done that, some suggestions about how you might like to try and think about doing it. So if there's any kind of burning thoughts, I would encourage you to look me up. I have some new branding. You probably formerly knew me as MFD Style, which has been my logo and my brand for years, and it still continues, but I have broadened my brand to really just encompass my name. So you can find me now on the web at mariadilorenzo.com. So it's MariaDilorenzo.com. And you can email me at mariadilorenzo.com, which would be really fun to hear from you. Or just share these episodes with your friends or your family or anybody you think might really enjoy Above and Beyond Style. Thanks again for joining me and being with me this week. And I can't wait to continue our conversation again.